Summer routines live or die by how easy they are, and honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
This is Dawn of Sports, featuring Dawn Mitchell of Fox 9, and we've been doing the show for a few weeks now. It's been an absolute blast. We've had great guests, all thanks to Dawn. Today's guest, longtime NFL and other kind of stuff reporter, Laura Okmin. Really, important person in the business. I think it's going to be a really fascinating conversation about not only her career, but how she has empowered other women. Really looking forward to that conversation. We're going to start, though, by talking about the Vikings victory. Dawn and I were at U.S. Bank Stadium on Monday night. And just to let you know, this is Dawn of Sports. This is part of TalkNorth.com. If you like the show, please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. It's the easiest way to listen. It's also free. You can go to TalkNorth.com. You can find all our other sports shows, all of our variety shows, all of our outdoor shows. Again, if you like a show, subscribe. We've got Krasinski, Russo, Jeff Diamond, John Millay, Roy Smalley, Lavelle Neal. We have so many people I can't always remember them all, and it's great to add Dawn to this list. We've had Mark Rosen, Mike Chirico, Jim Cott, Chad Greenway, Jack Jablonski, and we have been meaning to have more women guests on. Laura's going to be the first of many. Looking forward to it. So, Dawn, Monday night was fun.
Whew. And you know what? I wasn't shocked because I thought they could pull it out, but I was maybe surprised with the defensive play, how fun it was for fans. And it was enjoyable. I don't know for you, Jim, but it was enjoyable for me to watch too. It was
a great game.
It was good football. After that initial pickoff, it was enjoyable to watch. That I left there going, wow, that was a feel-good win.
It was. And, I'm going to brag because I never get a chance to brag because I don't pick games very accurately very often. But on the Viking Update show last week, I said that they would beat the 49ers.
You did?
Yeah, I just had this weird feeling.
Yeah.
I just thought that playing at home Monday night, they hadn't played well all season. I think they're better than they've shown. I thought they'd be geared up for it. Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel being out, even the playing field a little bit. I just had a feeling that they would find a way to at least make it close in the fourth quarter. And frankly, they were better than that. They led the whole way. Mm-hmm. And one of the most impressive things for me, Dawn, was the fact that Jordan Addison, while replacing Justin Jefferson, having to take over the number one role as a rookie, and a very small rookie, by the way, first route he runs, corner plays physical, jams him, steals the ball from him.
Bye-bye.
And you wonder, okay, is he just not going to be able to face up to a physical defense? And then he dominated that physical defense the rest of the way. He could have caught 4 touchdown passes.
Oh, easily.
One time, the defensive back grabbed his hand on a pass I'm sure he would have caught. And as well as Kirk Cousins played, and Kirk Cousins played great, he did miss Addison in the back of the end zone once.
Yes, he did. Well, what I really like, too, is they talked all week about responding, right? Yeah. You feel like, oh, is that another buzzword? When you saw it in his face, we can't see really from the press box, but you look up, you can catch a review here and there. And so we asked him at the end of the game, and he said he went right after that initial, he basically had the ball ripped out of his hands. Players can get embarrassed. They can get, especially a rookie, can get deflated. He got mad. And I like that. I really like that attitude that he got mad and was like, I went into kill mode after that. And I wonder if that's going to be kind of a thing for his career. So the fact that he not only got mad, then the defense backed it up real quick, right? So that was kind of like, oh, it kind of took the sting away. And then he got this first touchdown. What I really loved was the payback one. In the
biggest play of the game.
The biggest play, his payback touchdown. That was just beautiful. So I really enjoyed seeing a guy. I mean, I've told you about my whole Larry Bird story, right? You get the embarrassment, you handle it, you eat your dose, and then you come back. And so I love to see him do that. When I asked him, I said, you're fearless in the middle. Like, that's in the middle. You're fearless. He goes, that's why they got me. And he didn't say it cocky, like, well, yeah, because he knows what happened at the beginning of that game. I love to see that because he's a slight guy. He is a slight guy. So you have to amp up your physicality in the NFL. And to see him do that and then almost have the exact same play later and burn the same guy instead, that was beautiful.
It was. And I also give Cousins credit. This team had a bad habit of turning the ball over early, of not performing well in the first quarter, of getting behind and not being able to come back. And Cousins, instead of going, okay, God, the rookie just cost me an interception that I don't deserve, he came right back to him immediately. And he really fed Addison and Hawkinson, the two guys who were going to have matchup advantages because of Addison's quickness and Hawkinson's size and hands.
And that shows that you have confidence too, right? So especially, Hawk, we already know that he has confidence in this game. But for a rookie that just had that happen to him, to have your quarterback come right back at you, that is great. What I was surprised, I had to double check my facts, but that was their first quarter touchdown of the year.
Yep.
And you're like, oh.
It's crazy. And last year, they were great on the first drive of the game, and they were great in the fourth quarter, and they were sluggish in the middle quarters.
Yep.
I think what this says, at least to me, is, they have underperformed so far this year. But when I picked this team to win 11 games at the beginning of the season, I thought they'd be 3-4 at this point.
Really?
I just thought they would beat.
It's a tough stretch at the beginning.
I thought they would beat Tampa, and I thought they'd lose to the 49ers, and I thought the other games would all go about the same, and they'd be 3-4. Now they have a stretch of 6 very winnable games.
Yes. And
they're playing better. And they're going to get Jefferson back in the middle of that. They'll probably get Davenport back in the middle of that. We're going to, when we get to a later segment, I actually have a prediction or an expectation. For now, I'll just say I think they're in way better shape than people realize.
Right, because they're already in the wild card conversation as we are now.
Yep.
And like you said, we're going into a stretch that is winnable. Yes, is it tough when you go to Green Bay, regardless of who's out there? But the way the Vikings are playing and the way the Green Bay Packers are playing,
it should be a win.
It should be a win.
Yep.
And then was it Atlanta after that?
Yep. And New Orleans, which can't score. The Bears are in that mix again. Denver's bad. They've got a chance to go on a run here.
Exactly. And what I was really happy about, okay, they got the offense going. Great. They got a touchdown before the half, too. It wasn't that sluggish, like, all right, we're going to limp into halftime kind of feel. And then when the defense came out, when Cam Bynum got those 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter, and especially where you're like, oh, my gosh, here's the offense, right? Punting it away. Yep. And I just said, the defense needs to nail this down. And then to have Cam Bynum get the second one. First of all, he's such a good kid.
He's a great guy.
He's a great guy. Just to see in the locker room. So anyway, aside from plays, I want to talk about the celebrations. Okay?
They got back to being creative.
They got back to like 2017, right? They even stole one. They stole the duck, duck, gray duck, right?
They did.
They repurposed that. The limbo had me actually laughing out loud. And I want to go back and see who the guys were that were holding them up, like, the stilts kind of guys. But I was like, oh my gosh. And so when I asked them after the game, Cam said it, Jordan Hicks said it, they said, this was by design. We talked about the fact that we hadn't been having fun. We hadn't been celebrating. So we're like, it's almost like karma. It's almost like, hey, let's do a celebration. Let's practice them this week because it just means we're going to get them.
Well, think about it. I was always fascinated. I read a scientific study once about volleyball teams. And they said the volleyball teams that actually touch each other the most, and I mean, like fist bump, hugs, hand slaps, however you want to do it, are the most successful. It's team building. And you got to think psychologically, if you're in the middle of the week practicing celebrations, what a great mindset that puts you in.
How fun is it? Yeah, I think I read something similar, and it was about high-fiving.
Yeah.
And just that, and that it already gets you in that victorious mindset. Mm-hmm. Some people think that's hocus pocus. I totally believe in it.
I think it's true.
It's like, I think words are powerful. How you speak out loud is powerful. So the fact that they said, no, this was a conscious thing for us to go and do that, I thought that was really cool. So I enjoyed that. Now, the worm, That is hard. I used to be able to do the worm, and I say used to. But man, to do it twice. And
I have a history of back injuries. I would never try the worm.
Yeah. Especially backwards, I think it's easier than forward. Didn't he do forward? I don't know.
I don't know, but it was impressive, though.
And the cool side to that is, and I think I read this on NFL.com. He talked to Tom Pelissero about it. You know, we all know that Cam Bynum is very much into where his roots are from, the Philippines. But what we didn't know, and I know he got married this summer, beautiful wife, beautiful setting for the wedding. They got married over there, and he was doing all of his training there. But she's still there. She can't get a visa to come here. So that was his plea, you know, to try to get my wife is like now two football seasons she hasn't been to. So you get that element too. And then you weave in the fact that it was National Tight Ends Weekend.
Of course.
Right?
And Hawkinson finally played a clean game.
He did. And I know that they don't watch my pregame show.
Of course they do.
No, right. They're in the locker room getting ready. And
That's how they get ready.
Oh, yeah. So like, yeah, what's she got to say? I was
Yeah.
like, because I was like, I just want him to catch one. Because
Yes.
lately his hands have just been like hands of stone. 11 receptions for him against George Kittle, who not only is his friend now, but
Great player.
It's a guy that he absorbed everything from down in Iowa. And the whole tight end. So it was great. They had T-shirts. I want to see what the T-shirts were. He said that their tight end coach has a word that he always says at practice. So I don't know if he could tell us what the word was, but they had to put on the sleeve. Like now, I'm set out to find out what that was. Might be so inside ball that we wouldn't.
Oh
care.
no, we'll find out and we'll tell people.
Yeah, but I left there going, all right. And Kirk Cousins coming out with the top 10 chain. Did you see that?
Yep.
I'm like,
Jefferson put it around his neck during a post-game interview.
did he?
Yes.
That was awesome. I just saw him like running off the field with it.
Yeah.
I didn't know how he got
Yeah,
it.
Jefferson came out. I think it was when he was on ESPN doing the Lisa Salter post-game interview. Jefferson came over and hugged him and put the 10 thing on him, and they were laughing. And it is kind of it. I actually will say, and listen, I've taken my shots at Cousins about different things over the years, but he's become a more and more endearing personality over the last 2 years, and you could just see it in that interview. Here's Justin Jefferson, just couldn't have been happier.
Right.
For Kirk Cousins.
Right. It's just, and it was genuine,
Yeah.
you know. And what I like to that is to get someone who's new. Dalton Reisner, after the game, was talking, and he's been talking about how much he loves it in Minnesota here already. But he said, listen, it's different here. And it's not just, I'm somewhere new and I'm finally playing and I start. He goes, it's just different. The way KO runs this team, he goes, and I'm not long in the tooth, a well-traveled veteran. I've been one other team, but I've been on one other team that had the same record at one point as this team, and just how the different mindset is. And he just says, I'm just blown away from it. He goes, I love it. He said, the first time I go into the huddle, and I'm like, okay, oh my God, I'm going to be here. Here's Kirk Cousins, and then here's Justin Jefferson, and then here's he goes, at practice, he goes, and what they say, welcome to the party. He goes, that, and I was like, all right. So that was his initial thing, like, welcome to the party. But to see how he said, I haven't been here long, but I've seen them handle losses. I've seen them handle practices, and now I've seen this. He goes, I love it. So to have like this guy be unabashed about how much he loves not only how they handle stuff, but the guys, that was really kind of cool. It was really kind of cool to hear.
All right, before we get to Laura, we're going to buzz through some topics. We want to thank our longtime sponsors, Rudy Luther Toyota and All Energy Solar. We'll tell you more about them later. As we get the show rolling, if you want to get in early and get your spot locked up, if you know anybody who wants to advertise with us, you can reach our great sales executive, Karen Cleary, at KCLEARY at talknorth.com. For now, let's go to Take It From Us. Timberwolves open on Wednesday. The game might be played by the time you hear this, but I think we can talk in general terms. Biggest thing, they got Jaden McDaniels done to a deal that doesn't prevent them from keeping this group together if they play well together. That's a big deal. Jaden McDaniels is one of the best defenders in the league. He's one of the best offensive players who's a great defender, and he fits this roster perfectly.
Yeah, when you hear 5 year, $136 million, and when you say, how can that be cap friendly? It is. It actually is. Day and age. It's very friendly. And I just look down the roster and I'm like, I like this team more and more. You know, you get Kat, you get Rudy, you get Ant. Now they got Jaden locked up. I said, I'm really looking forward to this. And for the first time, I'm against the trade Kat rumors.
Well, good, because that's the intelligent stance to take. You don't trade. You don't trade one of your best players until you are sure it's not going to work here, and they don't know that it's not going to work here. He actually played really well down the stretch last year. Mm-hmm. He was sick in training camp. He got injured for most of the regular season. He looks great right now. He's in fantastic shape. I think he's going to have a big year.
I think he's changed mentally and emotionally on this team too. So I don't know what it was. I mean, we all know.
I think he's sick of taking crap.
Is he?
I think it's that simple.
Maybe. I'm like, all right, that's it.
He's been the guy. He's been the guy. Everybody in Minnesota, when they complain about the Timberwolves, they complain about Karl Anthony Towns.
Yep.
And while the root of the complaints is accurate, he does complain to refs too much, and he hasn't won anything yet. It's true.
Right.
True and true. The complaining to the ref thing is something every good basketball player does. They just all do. And the hasn't won anything yet is not all on him. It's on the organization. So I am pro-Cat.
I am pro-Cat now. You know, when they're having all the issues before, when Tibbs was here and Butler and the infighting, and you don't know which is which, and I'm like, I get annoyed by that kind of drama. I do, and some people feed into it and they want to know, and I'm just like, I'm over it.
It was annoying.
I'm annoyed by it. I was kind of like, I don't care who the source is. I just don't want to hear about it anymore. And so at that point, if they blew the team up and moved people around, I'd be okay with it. Did I ever think Cat was not a talent? No, I thought he was. Did I ever think he was the issue? I didn't know. I'm not in that locker room, and I don't play those games. I'm like, I don't know. I have not seen it. If I'm in the locker room and I see something, then I'll know, like, yeah, that guy's kind of a cancer or not. I had never thought that about it. But there was a point at one time I'm like, let's just, they're going to get a new logo again. Like, all right, let's revamp the roster again. Well, why not? But now I'm like, no. When Cat came back from his long injury, and then he was like Superman out of the phone booth, different dude, sharing the ball, happy for his teammates, and contributing, and he's kept that going. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. And now that I know Ant, he's always been a talent too, but you see him maturing to a different level too, which I still think sky's the limit for him. But Jaden is there's always that guy in the team that you need, right? That I don't want to say he knows his role, but he does. He knows his role. That basketball, you have to know your role and be okay with it. And that's what makes these successful teams. And so I was with you on that too. I'm like, oh, they locked him down 5 years. That's sweet.
And it means they don't have a chance of losing him next offseason, which is big. Right. And listen, they're going to have to win this year or they will blow things up, and that's fine.
Right.
But give it a good year.
Keep Rudy healthy. Yep. Keep Cat healthy. And I hate to say it, most of all, keep Ant healthy.
Right.
I think they're going to be a fun team to follow.
I think so. All right, on to hockey.
Ooh, I'm still mad about that goal.
Okay, tell me about the call.
Okay, so, Zuccarello got a goal, then they disallowed it. Okay, and they've had a couple issues with this before, and they said that Marcus Johansson was offsides. And I know Wild fans are sick of hearing about this already, but I think this will be a continuous problem. And I'm with Dean Evison in this camp. He said they preceded the puck into the zone, but it was the possession that they had the issue with. He did not possess the puck. And I'm like with Dean. Dean was like, I don't know anyone on earth that would think he did not. When did he lose possession? Like, no one was there. When did he lose it? And so I am all for, if you want to, what they say, tighten up the possession rules on offsides. Ticky-tack like that, where every time in the history of hockey, that has been a guy taking into the zone and feeding a guy. And it was such a crucial time. It was their go-ahead goal. And then, I don't know, I'm still mad about it. I'm just like, I don't like when they tighten up rules.
I don't like it when rules either go against the spirit of the game or they encourage officials to become too active.
Yes.
Speaking of which, I listen, the Gopher football team, they went down there.
I know what you're going to say.
Yes.
Wait a minute. What am I doing?
They do not. You're calling a fair catch, and I'm going to ignore it and run the ball back anyway. The Gophers don't have to apologize for winning Iowa City in any way possible. They played well. They put themselves in a position to win. They beat a ranked team on the road, a place they hadn't won since 1999. I don't want to take any of that away. I will just say this in the same spirit. God, that's a badly written rule. And then they took away a great play, whoever you're rooting for. They took away a spectacular play because of a nebulous motion, you know?
Right.
And again, I hate to pick on the officials because I think they called it by the book. So I'm really not going against the officials here. I hate that the rule could be written in a way where a guy waggling his left arm under his shoulder could be misconstrued as a fair catch.
Right, because I played soccer. It's not the same, but when you're excited that something can be like coming your way.
He was obviously waving for people to get away from the football. He was not calling a fair catch.
Right, he's like, hey, like to his guys,
Yes.
right? And then to further, if you really go into the weeds, because people were texting me, right? They're like, he did not call for a fair catch. It was an invalid catch, whatever. I'm like, basically, at the end of the day, it's the same thing. And they're what? I said, don't call it an invalid catch. It's either a fair catch or it's not. And it's obvious. He didn't raise his hand over his head. It wasn't obvious. And then the rule even says you can point, but you can't kind of wave-ish your hand.
And exactly. And that's where I'm
like, what?
That's what bothers me. Badly written rules, they always become obvious how badly they are written in crucial moments like that.
And the kid made a spectacular play.
It was a great
run. Right? Went down, scored. I was like, oh my gosh. I thought they were reviewing it that he stepped out of bounds.
Me too.
Or did something, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait, what? What are they doing? And then when you have to pass out the actual rule number, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then you're reading it going, well, wait a minute. So is an invalid hand signal? So I'm the same way. It happened. I said, for the first time, a Minnesota team was on the good end of a bad call.
That's absolutely true. And especially the Gophers.
Right. So no apologies.
Nope.
You take it because it's happened to you in the past. But yeah, it wasn't like we were talking about the Vikings. That's a feel-good win. It was more like...
Still a feel-good win. I'll give them that.
I feel bad for that kid, but yay! Floyd!
All right, we have a couple women's sports topics to get to. We do want to thank Rudy Luther Toyota, longtime sponsor of the network.
Ready for a women-forward car dealership? Rudy Luther Toyota empowers their many women on staff in sales, management, and service. Whether you are looking for a new Toyota or pre-owned vehicle, Rudy Luther Toyota has something for everyone. Every vehicle comes with a Luther Advantage. 10 cents off fuel and car wash discounts at holiday stations, Luther Advantage warranty, and 5-day return policy on pre-owned vehicles. Located just 5 minutes west of downtown Minneapolis, off 394 and General Mills Boulevard. And they're also hiring. Want to join the team but don't know where to start? Visit rudyluthertoyota.com today.
I also want to let you know that all energy solar panel installations are done right and made easy thanks to more than 14 years of experience in Minnesota and beyond. All Energy Solar is ready to take any solar project, home, business, or both, from design to installation and everything in between. Find out more about going solar at allenergysolar.com/coach, or just go to allenergysolar.com and learn everything you need to know about solar power and how it can benefit you. All right, time to talk women's sports. The Aces wrap it up. Dominant performance. They win with 2 starters out, which is remarkable, against a very talented Liberty team.
Awesome picture that someone took of her in the parade.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of, I think she had this half shirt with this fringe, and she's just holding the trophy up, and just to see the people, in Vegas, kind of cheering her on. I'm like, yes, this is the torch has been passed. But you've been calling it all along. She's kind of been your favorite player every single time we talk about this. To see her hoist that, I'm not mad that they're having a little dynasty.
No, it's fun. Dynasties,
I think it's good for the game.
I think dynasties are great because they give everybody something to shoot for, and when they come to town, everybody takes notice.
Yeah.
It's my argument about baseball is, I think it's good for baseball when the Yankees are good.
Yep.
It's also good when somebody beats the Yankees in the playoffs. But you want the Yankees to be good enough to care about them, and that's what Vegas is doing now.
And you need a superstar. You need someone that isn't going to shirk it. Kind of okay, all right, I'm a humble hero.
One more topic I want to get to before we get to Laura Okmin. Mara Braun is now on the Cheryl Miller watch list as one of the top 20 players at small forward in the country. She has a chance to be really special. I'm really looking forward to watching her play. Also, we're going to do something every week called the Aurora Moment. Andrea was really the founder, along with a bunch of her friends and co-investors of Minnesota Aurora. It's been an incredible national success story, incredible Minnesota story. Do you have an update?
I do. They started in Aurora too. This is how successful it is.
Wow.
So, and tryouts are now, the registration is open. So if you want to try out, they're not till Saturday, December 16th in Stillwater, and then Sunday, January 7th up in Blaine. And that is for the number 1 Aurora team. But there's an Aurora 2 team that will be the feeder system to this, because they're finding there's so much talent and so many unbelievable athletes that want to come play here. So just so you know, if you don't make it to those first 2, there's the Aurora 2. And they have another product that has gone pro. Vienna Benki is now in the Greek Super League, and that is the highest level of women's soccer that you can get in Greece. And there's 5 others. So now there are 6 pros that are coming. So now the Aurora is a feeder system to professional women's hockey, and I mean women's soccer, and we say football too, just to make sure that when we include the European teams in there, just to see women's football, women's soccer, just kind of have a hotbed here and go to pros. It's just amazing to see.
It's just it's the best story I've seen in Minnesota sports in a long time. So congratulations to Andrea, all of her co-investors. Everybody's helped, Nicole, everybody's helped put that thing together.
Well, joining us now, Jim, I'm really excited to introduce everyone. If you haven't already seen her and heard her already, Laura Okmin. We go way back, but you've seen her on the NFL sidelines for years with Fox. You also hear her on Westwood One. Most recently, she covered the Bears game. That was an exciting win if you are from Chicago. And I also want to get into one of her brand new companies called Galvanize that I really enjoy. So joining us now, Laura Okmin. Laura, thank you. I know you are globe-trotting around the world, nonstop red eyes. So thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. Of all the things you said, my favorite part of the introduction was you and I go back a long way. So the hard part is usually when we see each other, it's running across sidelines, a quick hug and a quick run. So I'm just happy that I get some time with the two of you right now to just sort of sit and enjoy a conversation. We don't get that often.
No, we don't. And that's what we're talking about with the joy of this podcast. And I wanted is so many times, and we're 2 minutes, ask 2 questions, and get this, that there isn't the easy conversation that you can just kind of tell stories, not worry about a clock ticking in your head, and just enjoy. And I was talking to Jim about it as well, and we'll talk about it, but also just the camaraderie, not only between you and I these years, but we have seen a shift over the past few years with women in this business supporting other women. That now when it used to just be you and me across the way, or, maybe we would see Pam Oliver, like it would be you and Pam and ships passing in the night. But now there's so many different women, and you are, with your Galvanize company, are really strengthening that. How has that been for you to see the younger women kind of not only come to you, but then they get jobs and you see them out there working?
And now we're at the point, we've been around 12 years now. So now they're hiring each other, and now they're in each other's weddings, and now they're their godmothers to each other's babies. And boy, it makes me feel so proud. I was going to say so old, and I'm really doing my best not to make age jokes anymore because I hate them. And because one of the reasons I'm still doing what I'm doing is because I want these young women to see women over 50 still crushing it and living their best lives. And you and I never got to see that in our industry. And so I just know that at times I look around when I'm with all these women and I go, man, I would have killed for this. And then I think, well, if I would have had this, I would have never wanted to create it. Right. And so it makes, if I would have had the choice in hindsight, either you can be around, surrounded by amazing women, or you can create something that's bigger than my job. I would take this all day. And it's incredible. We're past 5,000 women now. And so to see how I still get pictures from women who did a boot camp 12 years ago. And so to see them in these incredible jobs and in these incredible lives and their families. I'm not a mom. So it's allowed my mother's heart to grow 10 sizes and let me feel like I have over 5,000 kids.
I'm glad you said that, because there are a couple of women that I know that have done your camps, and they said, listen, I don't even know if I want to be a sideline reporter, but I came away from it feeling empowered and feeling loved and feeling more than. And that made my heart grow for you. So, because you always think of, what do you want to empower young women? You want them to make the choice. You don't have to go be a reporter. If you want to, that's great. But if you learn something that you can take for your life forward and feel better about yourself and to feel supported by other women, I think you've done the job exponentially already at that point.
And everyone in the beginning of Galvanize, when it first started, the heavy majority was women on camera. And that made sense because that's what I knew. And that's sort of, what I based it around, is to help you all get better on camera. And I focused more on that. And then it started being off camera. And then it started being, hey, let's grab everybody in sports. And so now we do workshops and boot camps, and I'll have 26 women and there's nobody on camera. And that's really, really important to me, because I want to raise commissioners, and I want to raise presidents, and I want to raise general managers and head coaches. And so I love my women on camera, but I really love my women who come to Galvanize and say, I'm not sure yet what I want to do. Because you and I, as women, 30 years ago, getting into this industry, the only thing we saw was a woman on a field holding a microphone. And if I was getting into it now, I wouldn't go near this job. I'd be going for the power.
Right.
I'd be going to hire people. And so what I always say is kind of what you were saying. When you and I started, we could count women. And I used to, at my first Super Bowl, my first Olympics, I'd always count women because I could. And so in the beginning, this, that you could count on one hand. Then suddenly you could count on two hands. And now we could never count. There's so many women, which is amazing. But if we counted how many women are in power, and how many women hire, and how many women are truly in impactful positions that make or change our industry, we're back to one hand again. And so that's really where my focus is now. If you come to our boot camp or our workshop, you would never know it's for sports. Even when we team up with all of these NFL teams, which we do, and we just did Notre Dame men's and women's basketball teams, we still don't talk sports. It's all about who you are. And everything about it for these women is, I don't care what your job is. I want to make sure when you leave here that I've helped you navigate a classroom, a boardroom, or a locker room. And our last cycle of workshops and the last seminar I did, our youngest was 18 and our oldest was 53. We have a ton of galvanizers in their 30s and their 40s, and now in their 50s, because they're coming back for the dream and going, well, now I see other positions. I see player engagement. I see management, and I see all these other things that I don't have to be 22 and out of college. And the cool thing is, when you put them all together, the young ones are intimidated because they're like, what do I add? I don't know if I belong. My older ones are intimidated. They're like, I feel so old. I'm so behind. And they wind up inspiring each other in this really cool way that, again, has nothing to do with sports. I just hope they have the confidence, whatever they're stepping into in sports and in life and work, whatever, to finally get out of their heads and into their confidence.
And I'm so glad you said that. For years, and people would say, well, why do you take the time? I've had interns in the past, and one of mine, and I won't say her name, but she's now a police officer.
Awesome.
And she said, what I loved is when I told you I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do in college, you were about empowering me to make my decision and how to find my voice and how to speak up for myself. And even at times where I think sometimes the interns notice when I'm put in positions where speaking up for myself, you get some clap back. And they've learned like, okay, so if it's hard for her, if it's hard for Dawn, who I'm watching, to still stand up for herself in that situation and to do so professionally, I get that greatest feedback from the people who aren't doing what I'm doing because they're following what they want to do. So it's like I'm a mom now, and I'm teaching my daughter the things that you taught me, or I'm a police officer, and thanks for having patience with me because I ultimately decided I didn't want to be a reporter. And I'm like, that's not what empowering other women is about. It's about having the choice and doing that. And you said something, Laura, that really stands out to me. And I say this sometimes to people, and they look at me like I'm hypocritical. Sometimes when I see other women on the sideline, I'm like, I wish they weren't just on the sideline. So I get angry when it's the stereotypical job for a woman to start at. Like when you see a whole table of men doing the pregame show and one woman manning the ship. So when Fox told me, we want you to be on the table with the men, but we want you to be an analyst. We want you to say what you're thinking. So that was out of the box. Have I hosted? I enjoy hosting, yes. And then the other men are the analysts. But when they said, you know it just as well, I mean, you didn't play the game, but you know the game and you bring a different voice. People say, why do you like being on the desk for your Vikings pregame show so much? I go, because I get to be in that role. And women get to see me in that role. I'm not just, hi, welcome, and what do the guys think? This is what I think. And when you look around, like you said, you can count that on one hand.
Yeah. And I think the position has never found its way. I think that every time you have a different producer, they view sideline reporters very differently. Some value them very much and know how important eyes and ears are down there. And some don't see the value at all and tell you that. And so it's a role that it shows that, right? Mm-hmm. It shows that on television, depending on the network and station that you watch, and how active the reporter is and how inclusive the team is with usually a her, but sometimes a him. Mm-hmm. And I think it's changed a lot. You brought up Pam Oliver, and Pam's one of my closest friends, and Pam and I talk a lot about this. And when Pam and I got to this level, Pam, before me, but we already had our journalistic bones in. We were actual journalists. We were reporters. We had done news. We had done sports. We had anchored and hosted 30-minute, 60-minute shows. And I had worked at 24-hour networks by the time I got to a sideline position. And so it was a position that was viewed very differently. Now it's become, quote, the girl position, the girl mm-hmm. role. And what's happened is it's their first job. And it scares me to death because mm-hmm. the team reporter role, not all, but many, and the sideline reporter role, not all, but many, they are gigs, but they're not going to be long-lasting careers. And Correct. So I just at our last seminar, Pam was there, and we were having a conversation in front of everyone. And I think like at 33 years, Pam's probably 5-6 years longer than me, and saying if we would have started as sideline reporters, we would have never lasted over 3 decades. Mm-hmm. And that's what worries me about the position. But at the end of the day, you have to find whatever your role is, right? Like I did the desk for a long time and I didn't find my joy there. And so I find it in the field, but you just have to make sure that you are creating what you do better than anyone. For a long time, I competed with my analysts and thought I was supposed to watch every single, cut up and every film and everything they were watching. And then I one day finally realized, you know what? Daryl Johnson is a 3-time Super Bowl champion. He is always going to know more football than me. But what can I do better than Daryl? And so I went, you know what? I can build relationships better. I can know the ins and outs of a locker room. I can get to know everyone. So I very much started honing my skills and going, here's what I bring that no one else does. And to this day, when Daryl has to get someone's phone number or ask me about how a locker room is, Daryl calls me and goes, what have you heard about this? Or mm-hmm. do you have this person's phone number? Because he knows how hard I work at that. And so I think it's just always making sure, even as a woman, when you're put in that box, to go, how do I get out of this box? And if you're feeling like I'll just say this. What's frustrating with that is I'm a 50-something-year-old woman who can easily get out of my box now, right? I finally have my voice and my confidence, and I can speak up and defend myself. But if I'm 23 years old and I'm put in a box and my producer says, you have no value, we can do this game tomorrow and you don't need to be here, nobody will, bat an eye, which is what I was told. They are going to carry that not just for a Saturday or Sunday, they're going to carry that until therapy.
Right.
They're going to carry that until they eventually go, okay, I do have value and I do have worth. And that's what I hate about these positions right now for women, which is we're just put in a box, and that takes a long time to get out of it, a lot of confidence. And that's hard at 23, 26 years old.
Yeah, and I think people also don't know the inner workings sometimes. So when I did sidelines for Fox, I did them for regional, and it's not like the crew that you're with every single game. There are some people, they have the same crew, the A crew or the B crew. You have your same producers, directors, announcers. I would get a new director, new crew every single time. So you're basically going in cold. And they're like, okay, so this is what we're looking for in a sideline reporter. And you do that. So one would tell me, hey, Dawn, sell me your story. Like if you see something and you want to talk about it during the game, sell it to me. Like talk to me in the headsets, talk to me. Another director would be like, I only come to you for injuries and halftime updates, and so for me, like you, I'd already been in the business a minute before I started doing it. I'm like, okay, so I'm getting a different person. I'm getting a different style. Let's see what I like. I've had to work for some stories. Hey, that guy that's on the offensive line, that guy that's on the defensive line, they're jawing at each other. They're like best man at each other's weddings. Like, what? Sure, we'll come down to you. Then they'll come down to you and you tell that story. But then there was a guy that I knew. I'm not going to say his name. He's still a really good friend of mine. We worked before he became a big director. And he's like, Dawn, what? We've known each other for like 15 years, 20 years. I love you. I'm only going to come to you if there's an injury, and that's it. And so I said to him, do I still get paid the same? He goes, yeah. I go, all right. But that was me. If I were 20 years old and he said that to me, I would feel not valued. And now I'm at the point in my life, too, that if I don't feel valued, I will tell people. Like, I'll either come out and say I don't feel valued in this moment, or you let them know in other ways. But you're right, Laura, a 20-year-old, they're in therapy or they get out of the business. There's so many women, people are like, well, where are they now? And I want to show, like, wow. Like, I was afraid, just like you were saying, I was afraid to say this is my 20th Viking season that I'm covering.
You should be proud of that.
Well,
Exactly.
for years, I've lied and say I'm 28, right? And I know, I say
So
I
you started
lied.
young.
I was 8 years old when I started.
Yeah.
So now that's a joke, but, ageism is still a real thing. I don't
joke about it.
Yeah, I don't. It's not funny. My very first agent, who's no longer my agent, saw what year I graduated from college and basically signed me. And he said, it's a good thing like you're not in your 30s, because once a woman hits 30, their history, but you're perfect. You're exactly what we want. You're mid-20s, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, wow. Like
brutal.
you just showed me what you just said, what we think happens, but it does happen. So I'm like, well, then I'm just going to stay in my 20s then. If this is what people think, I'm never going to turn 30. And so,
Yeah.
and then, then other women will say to you like, well, I don't have a problem with my age. And I'm like, I have no problem with my age, but my business does. So I'm not going to let people know. But then after a while, you're like, I've been doing this a minute. Like, don't treat me like I've been here 5 minutes. So it is that balance. And hopefully, more of us can be like, yes, this is my 20th Viking season. And it's not the first team I've covered. So you do the math, right? You can happily do the math. So I just want to thank you. I know that throughout our years, and you and I have been through some stuff, and that we'll have that 5 minutes, but I can come to you and I can be like, this is how I'm feeling about the business and where I am in life. And can you give me advice? And you will take that time, Laura. I don't care if you're going to be on in 5 minutes. You took that time and you would have that conversation with me. That probably has helped me stay in the business. So I wanted to publicly thank you, even though I know I've
appreciate
personally
that.
done that.
It's I'm so glad that at this age I've gotten to see. I think sometimes it's usually an older thing when you're in your 50s or your 60s or older, and then you look back, right, and you kind of go, I did my job, but I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done this. And I'm really grateful that I feel like I had a mom who died young. And she died at 51. And so I understand how precious it is. And I understand how rare it all is, to be able to live a long, full life. So I've always tried to pack a lot in and find my purpose early, because I know my mom was just finding hers when she passed away. And so I get calls constantly, not just from galvanizers, but from women who are older than me in the business who don't have women peers or women friends. And I also know that they haven't been great to women, but suddenly they're dealing with the ageism stuff, and they'll go, I don't know who to call. And so I've heard you're a champion and you empower. And so they'll call me. And that's the stuff where I'm like, cool, I love my job. And at the end of the day, why I'm still doing it is because because I'm using it while it's using me. And that was important for me at this age to feel that way. But I also know that I'm really proud of that a woman who has held the door open for me still feels like I'd be someone that she can trust. So you saying that means more than any hit, right? Or more than any story I ever do. I feel like that's where my mom's legacy is in me, of making sure that I've thought about who I am, not just what I'm doing.
And people don't realize there are those other women, and I witnessed it firsthand. I had a friend of mine, and this is way back in the day, was working behind the scenes at ESPN, and we were on a baseball field. And I'm not going to name this other woman, but this guy, this runner, that's what we call them, came running over to my friend and said, "You need to get off the field." And we're thinking there's an emergency. Like, what? Is there a story goes, hey, you need to leave the field. And I'm just listening because he interrupted our conversation. And she said, well, why? And he said, you just have to go. And she goes, well, why? Is there a story? What? He says, no, X says she will be the only female from ESPN representing on the field today.
Oh, my God.
And this is a big name. And I looked at my friend and I said, you do not leave this field. And she goes, no, I have to. It's X. And I think I've always felt, and I was young in my career, I think in that moment, made me double down on I don't care. I will help whatever woman. I had Leslie Visser, who was like, every time I see another woman on the field, Dawn, I'm so excited. I had the exact opposite as a mentor. But it made me double down because you hear that it exists, but until you actually see it and witness it, it doesn't really make you mad. That made me mad. And I've never looked at that person the same way. They don't even know, but I've never looked at that person the same way again. And I will be like, if any woman wants me to help, I don't care. Someone said, well, what if you help a woman who gets your job? I said, then I wasn't meant to hold on to it. Like, I am not white knuckling any job because I will never do to another woman what I just saw done there. It still to this day gets me mad, and it was many, many years ago. But so people are like, oh, that really happens? I said, it happens. Some women want to be the only woman. But I have found over the past few years, and maybe the times are changing, younger women supporting younger women. And like, I love seeing Carissa Thompson and Erin Andrews be such good buddies because so many people for years wanted to pit them against each other. To see them do the Calm Down podcast and to be really good friends. And I'm like, yes, this is what it's about. This is what I feel when I see Laura. This is what I feel when I see Pam Oliver or Stacey Dales. We're all in that little dank off the field restroom trying to get our lipstick and try to look the part, and you're in these awful conditions that we just bound together. And now I just see kind of a tribe of women coming forward, in addition to your talent and knowing your stuff. And that brings me forward, Laura, because I just want to say, like, the Bears game that you were most recently at when Tyson Bagent won, and your on-field interview, I just want to say, like, as a person that does this, it was fantastic because people don't know who this kid is really. His first NFL win, you brought that joy and you brought the kid out in him. How was that for you after doing millions of interviews to be able to do that? I know I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I do too. It's almost every time, after so long, you think we've pretty much done every story, right? Like
right.
It's a different face and maybe they're from a different place, but I'm so thankful when you get a story like that and just go, oh, reminds me of why I fell in love and stayed in love with sports. And we had talked to him enough that week, and I already knew how lovely he was, but I also knew how he reminded me very much of Brock Purdy. And we had Brock a lot last year and have had him again this year. It's almost like you want to be like, but isn't this so exciting? Like, come on, and you feel that, and they're so calm and they're so cool about it. And I love that. But I also, was thinking about that for my post game as it looked like it was happening, where I was like, oh, okay. We only get 2 questions, which is impossible sometimes. You just pray for a follow-up that you can't have. But I was really grateful that the last 10 years, probably, I have really focused so much more on who players are versus what they do. And I've called the last, few seasons since COVID my season of purpose, and tried to really make sure that I'm showing who these men are and who their families are. And, and I think I shied away from those stories early because I was so worried they were women's stories or girl stories. And so I never wanted to tell them. And now that's all I do is, I'm obsessed. If it doesn't matter if it's a football field or if I'm sitting next to you on an airplane, I want to know what you've overcome in life.
Right.
And so I loved getting that with him because I was trying to think, while the clock's winding down, like, okay, how do I do this? And you understand this, where I was like, if I make it about him, I'm not going to get anything. And if you watch the interview, it was my favorite thing in the world. Because it's his first network interview, and that there is some nerves with that. And I saw that, and he came over and he couldn't be lovelier about, like how great to kind of bookend our weekend together. And so the second question, when I said, let's inspire some people today, and he nodded at me.
Yes.
And that's how I wanted him out of his head to go, let's not make this about you. Let's make this bigger, because I know he wants to inspire. And he took it like a seasoned vet. Because if I just would have said to him, what does this mean to you?
Right.
It would have been the cliche, right? Like, I'm happy to get the win. I'm happy, da-da-da. But the second he nodded, I just, I realized that these young men and young women, again, I just worked with Notre Dame women's basketball team. So the same thing, their platform so much better than athletes did 30 years ago or 20 years ago, that they get, I don't need to talk about me. And if I'm not talking about my teammates, if I'm going to inspire somebody, I'm going to dive into this. And so even with 2 questions, I would have killed for 5 more.
Right.
But I loved his answer, and I loved the genuineness of it. And sometimes, even though he's about to do a press conference and get, pummeled with, 50 questions, sometimes those raw 2 questions right off a field are really meaningful because PR hasn't talked to them yet.
Right.
And they haven't had time to come down. It's just really how they feel. And I felt that was like a lovely, true answer that he gave about really wanting to make sure that every other Division II, Division III kid that's told you don't belong here realizes where he is right now at this moment. And I thought he shared that beautifully.
Oh, it was fantastic. And people don't realize you only get 2 questions. Sometimes you get 1, right? It reminded me eons ago, and it was here when Brett Favre was still with the Packers. And he came here, and remember, he had the touchdown record for a little bit. But I was doing the sidelines, and the producer tells you, they say, first of all, Dawn, you have to get the interview because he wouldn't tell us. Usually they secure it for you. He's like, he won't do it. Or he hasn't said he would. So the director's mayor, you have to secure Brett. So thankfully, I had covered the Packers in the past. So I went to Aaron Popke, who used to be PR. He's up there, he's on the field. I go, if I want to get his interview. And he said, I'll talk to Brett in the timeouts. So then he comes over and goes, he said, if he wins, he'll do it. I'm like, okay, great. So now it looked like they were going to win. And then the director says, Mayor Dawn, he cannot say this means nothing to him. He can't say that. Right. And so I was like, okay, so like, Laura, you have to craft a question a certain way. And it also helps if you know the athlete a little bit. Like you're saying, this guy's young, you have to read into like his foibles or how to use it. So I'm like, it's Brett Favre. And he can't say this touchdown record means nothing. So all of a sudden I go, okay, I got it. Because Brett Favre too, he's all about the team, right? So I'm like, well, they just improved to 4-0. I said, so I'm just going to weave it in there. And Brett can talk, right? So I'm like, I only got one question, and people like, that was a great interview. I got one question. And I basically said, Brett, you improved to 4-0. You came in here, you got a win with this team. That means nothing more to you. And on top of it, you get the touchdown record. Dawn, you're absolutely right. And then it goes on for like 5 minutes. But it's almost like you learn in J school. You can't ask a yes or no question. You have to ask it so that they can answer it. But then you have to ask it, right? You didn't want Tyson to shut down, so you have to ask it to open it up. Just like with Favre, I didn't want to be like, nope, the touchdown means nothing. I won. So you have to couch it. So sometimes people at home don't realize, like I got one or two shots to kind of to create this. But
so much of it is the relationship of, I know I learned as a young reporter, I covered the Bulls. I covered Michael Jordan playing baseball. And I remember one time kind of stalking him, waiting for him walking out of the parking lot to the locker room pregame. And I was waiting in a place and like kind of jumped out and was like, Michael, la, 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 whatever I needed. And he stopped and he kind of like put his hand out and he's like, Laura, hello, I'm good. How are you? And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And he was like, no, I get it. Like, I know what you're doing. I know you have 34 seconds. He's like, but hello. And that was the greatest gift he could have given a young reporter. I was probably 25 at the time of got it. And always making sure I never, ever, ever start any interview. And that's pretty hard post game when people, you're running, you're grabbing someone, but I will always hear Michael Jordan in my ear telling me to slow down and say hello. And so yep. I make sure, even if my producer's yelling, go, 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 I put that microphone down and I congratulate. I say something to connect me with him first. Yes. And at this point, we pretty much know everybody. We cover 32 and I've been around a long time. And that helps, right? Like, it's just the difference of just popping a microphone in someone's face and saying, tell me, or I want to know, or, what do you think? And it's just being a human. There's no trick to that. It's just, it's just the kindness and just of treating everybody like you want to be treated. And at the end of the day, that's always going to make someone open up in a much more vulnerable way and a much more genuine way.
Is there any other failure that you have done that you share with people like that, to be like, hey, listen, I've been there, I've done that. Like, what was the hardest thing that you've ever had to do, and publicly, obviously?
Because privately, publicly, with Galvanize, I always say, when I always tell the women, who are as hard as themselves as we were, then about making a mistake, I always say to them, do you guys ever hear me teach from a successful thing I've done? Like, it's, I never do. Galvanize is always about I hate to say my failings, my lessons.
Yes.
And so probably the biggest one I always talk from Michael, that's a big one I always share with Michael. But the other one that was the most embarrassing and the most valuable and invaluable was kind of the same principle, where one time I called Charles Barkley, and a young reporter, and was fortunate enough to know him with the Dream Team. And I was working in Montgomery, Alabama. He's from Alabama. So we had paths that crossed. And so I called one day, and he answered the phone, and he said, well, Laura Okmin, what do you need? And I said, Charles, can a girl just call and say hello? And he said, a girl can, you just never do. And he's like, I'm not trying to give you grief. Anybody knows Charles Barkley would not have said grief, but I'm not trying to give you grief. I just know when you call, you need something. So what do you need? Oh. And that just crushed me, because at that age, I thought, well, why else would I call Charles, to say, great game, or what'd you do this weekend, or and nervous about lines crossing. And so I didn't know what to say to him. So I just never did, but then realized also what that meant, how that looked. So that's the most important lesson ever I've learned in life and in work about reaching out when I don't need things and how to build relationships differently. And I still call Charles and thank him for that. And I'm really fortunate. Like when I started teaming up Galvanize and NFL players, I called a lot of players for over all these years to ask them, hey, I'm trying to build trust between these two sides. I'm trying to teach empathy and respect. And when I got in with you, can you help me teach that? Like, what did I do that you said, I like her and I trust her and I'm going to let her in? And they would all say the same thing. And they would say, because you reached out 10 times, but you've only asked for things once. And so I would call Charles immediately and say, thank you, thank you for the gift of that lesson. So that really is probably my most embarrassing moment of Michael and Charles, and what cool people to teach me those lessons. But being a young reporter who wasn't ready for those moments, I wasn't ready to cover Michael. I wasn't ready to cover Charles. And I'm really fortunate that those people taught me those lessons, but they taught me them in Montgomery, Alabama, and in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So by the time I got to CNN, by the time I got to Turner or Fox, I learned those lessons with some pretty cool people. But I was finally ready for not just, being on camera, but more importantly, the responsibility of telling people stories that came with it.
Yeah, because there's a trust level that an athlete kind of gets with you.
Yeah.
And they have to know that they can trust you. And I think one of the hardest lessons, and it will always be this way until the end of time, that I don't know how we can change it. And I was just talking to one of my coworkers about it. That especially if you're a young and in your 20s and you're a female and you're starting out, you can't. I did not go into a locker room unless I had my photographer.
Yeah.
Because they think you're in there for something else. Yeah. And I did not keep players' numbers in my phone. And I remember when I first got here, and I had worked in Chicago for 5 years, and I came here for the interview, and I remember my GM at the time, Carol Ruppel, saying, would you mind if I looked at your phone and saw your sources and see your sources to see how well sourced you are? And I said, I can hand you my phone and you can look at them, but you won't find a source in there. You won't find a male player source if that's what you're looking for. And I said, those are up in my old-fashioned Rolodex, locked in my desk. And she's like, what? And I said, if a woman has a male athlete's personal number in her phone, it can just, people can think it's a whole different relationship. And so I kept those lines very separate. Because I said, I think I have to police my own career. I don't want the wife thinking I'm calling for a different reason. I don't want my bosses thinking I'm blurring lines. And that's just something I carried over from when I was, my first job was in Boston, right? And you don't blur those lines. I grew up with the whole Lisa Olson issue, and I love Lisa. Yeah. But you learn those lessons. And I was like, this might take me longer to, but I'm not calling them unless I have a reason. But I specifically made sure that when I saw them at the ballpark or at the rink or at something else, that I would say, hey, how are you? And have a conversation, so they knew that if I called, it was for something. But I learned that the hard way. There's a couple of, and this is eons ago, but like the Celtics' wives did not want me in the locker room. And I'm like their kid sister. I'm not after anything else. So there's a lot of other hurdles that young women have to deal with that men don't have to deal with. And now as you get older, it's more like, well, this could be my nephew, then the younger they got, this guy could be my son. It's probably not the same, but it's really hard, I would say, for women. So I said, I don't, unless it's a family friend or something, I don't just go fishing with an athlete. I'm not going to meet them out after a game. I go, that was my personal policy. Unless I'm related to him or he's married to one of my good friends, I'm not doing it. But now you get to a certain age where you're like, okay, I've built established a reputation. People know that, you know this person. But it's very difficult. But you also have to balance that with not coming across like you always want something.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what's so cool about women finally teaming up and women sharing is we've all had to do it differently. We've all come up with the same obstacles and the same stereotypes and the same perceptions. And I think there's something really cool about sitting and having a glass of wine with contemporaries and asking nowadays, how'd you get through that, and not judging it and being like, really, like you did that. I actually did it this way. And yet here we all are. So
Exactly.
I think, right. So there's no right way. There's no wrong way. I think the hard thing about doing it all those years ago was just, you didn't have anyone to ask. My best friend for 20 years was Stuart Scott. And when Stuart and I first met, Stuart was at ESPN2. So like Stuart was just coming up. And so I just remember one day I walked into the Bulls. It was actually the day Alonzo Mourning was being traded to the Heat, and they were playing the Bulls. And it was a game, and we were all waiting for Pat Riley to come do the presser. And I walked in there, and it was all men. And as I'm looking around, it's all white men. And Stuart was in there. And I looked at Stuart like of being really loud and out there, and I just sat there looking at him like, isn't that interesting? Like, I'm the only woman right now. Stuart's the only person of color. I'm hiding in a corner, and I don't want anyone to notice me. And Stuart very much wanted to walk in a room and be noticed. And we would talk about that, for 20 years, and the difference of why I was the way I was, why he was the way he was. And also just with him always being able to cultivate relationships and to be able to figure out who he was, and then watch me with the same work ethic and watch us as we were kind of, building together and seeing the differences. And I loved having him. He was the most important voice in my head and, my heart for a very long time. But there were things I would always say, you just don't understand. Like, you just can't. You have to be a woman in this business to get it. And so I just always think, if I would have had women friends back then going through it, I think, we probably would have helped each other make a lot fewer mistakes. I think there were some things I wish I wouldn't have done. I just didn't know better. And there were some, my mom had just died. I was thrown into this world and no other women, and kind of just trying to fend for myself and not wanting to ask anyone for help. And so my head was so down, just like in front of me, just trying to take one foot against the other, and just trying to figure this life out. So I wasn't looking behind to see, is there someone else that I can help? I wasn't looking ahead. Maybe Leslie Visser could help me, or Lisa Olson. And I certainly wasn't looking to the side to see if there were any sisters, going through it. I struggled hard. I was, very depressed, and had a really cool job. And because everyone kept telling me how cool my job was, and I knew it, I never wanted to seem ungrateful. I never wanted for anyone to think I was lonely. I was depressed because I was covering Michael Jordan and the Bulls and how amazing it was. But also I know it was a really hard time in my life, because I desperately would have loved to have had another woman who had went through it, or who was going through it, to be able to say, how are you handling this?
Right.
And I think that's why, every day I thank God for Galvanize, which is just, I tell them constantly, do not, I hate double negatives, but do not call me
Right.
if you've made a mistake, because that's what I'm here for. I will never judge you. I want to be that first call that you go, I stepped over a line, because we can't figure out our lines until we cross over them as a woman in any male-dominated industry, or a person in any, when they are the anomaly in whatever room they're in. And that's hard when you're a young woman trying to figure out your line, and everybody's telling you, like, do this, don't do this. And it's hard. So anyway, I say all that to say, like, we all have to figure out, going back to what you said, we all had to figure out our way to do it. And probably most of us made some mistakes along the way, but if we're still in this business, what my hope is always that we stop looking them as mistakes. We start looking at them as lessons, and they're important lessons. And now what I would say is, on my deathbed, those things that I thought, oh God, like those were mistakes I made. I hope that those are some of my favorite flashbacks. I hope that all that mess that I thought was so terrible winds up being some of my most fun stories and fun memories to look back at and go, man, I was just a young kid trying to figure it out in a pretty cool scenario, or a pretty cool backdrop, that we all get.
Well said. Well said. And I thank you for being that for me. even from across fields.
Yeah.
And I am so proud. And I can't wait. If you bring Galvanize to Minnesota, I will be there to cheer you on, help you, do whatever you want, because
Thank you.
I know from when you started this, I was like, this is amazing. Anything you need. And just to see it grow into what it is, I'm like, yes, that is paying it forward. That is shining the light. And you are a light. So thank you, Laura. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. And right back at you. Thank you for everything you do for the generations that are coming. They keep coming, the generations behind us, and for being such a good friend along the way. So I can't tell you how much I've loved watching your career, watching you grow, more importantly, off camera as a person, and your happiness. So I can't thank you guys enough for having me on and just this conversation.
Yes, and be careful on those red eyes. Right? There's so many germs out there, girl. I'm like, just protect yourself.
Thank you for not putting me on Zoom today, you guys. Thank you for not making me get shower and look presentable today.
Oh, you should see what Jim and I look like.
No, you shouldn't, actually.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Laura.
Have a great week.
Thanks, you guys,
Love
too.
you,
So
girl.
appreciate the conversation.
Okay, same here.
Hi, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat, emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month, even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending, 0 tears.
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.